Okay, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about supplies first. These are the Daniel Smith transparent and gold iridescent ground. I use these a lot. They're great tools to use in your journals. You can put this the transparent one over anything and use watercolor, and I like that. It says to let it dry for 24 hours, but today I was not prepared, so I'm just gonna do it and lay down colors. Here are the Dina Wakley Night and Fuchsia. I like using they're heavier body. This is like some high fluid golden acrylics. There's black and gold, green gold and nickel azo. I love that one. That one's my favorite one. You can see it gets used a lot. And then I'm going to be using some of these infusions. I'll leave a link to these. These are a lot of fun. You sprinkle them like salt shakers. I put a hole in the top and just kind of sprinkle them. I'll show you later. But anyways, then there's some little bits of ephemera I have. And then the Rae Missigman stencil, any stencil would work. And then I'm using these Tim Holtz paper dolls. I love them. And little bits of ribbon. Here's some more scraps that I have, just a little stash that I have on my desk that I can just use whenever I need it, but I may grab from it, I may not, you never know. Any ephemera that you have will work here. Any stencils that you have will work here. Any supplies that you have will work here. I'm just going to give you some suggestions, and then you can do whatever you want to here. All right, I'm going to go in first with the ground. Now with the gold. Now I'm going to be playing with this ephemera and just kind of adding some marks to it because it's sent a little plain. I may or may not use it. It just depends on what happens, but it looked kind of plain, and I like writing on the vintage papers and stuff, so I thought I would write out a quote and some doodles, some marks, and just kind of taking some scraps and adding some color to them. And then I'm going to take these infusions. I love these things. You just kind of sprinkle them down, and then you add water to it, and I just move it around. They're really cool. Some of them have multiple colors, and some of them, like this I'm going to show you here, it is just a solid olive green. And some of them will have, like the Rocky Road has like several colors in it. They're just so much fun to play with. Here's where I'm showing you how I put a hole in the top of the bottle, because it just saves me, because I was just pouring it out in the beginning and it just made a mess. So the hole in the top of the bottle, I just took some scissors and stabbed a hole, and it made it work so much easier. So you can lay it down first and then spray it. That's my preferred way of using it. Or you can spray your surface, your substrate or whatever, and then sprinkle it on. And it's not as fluid, I guess. Like you can see it there. It kind of, yeah, I like spraying it after. I like putting it down and spraying it after is kind of my preferred way of doing it. It just seems to, there you go. I added some the raspberry one, so that you guys can see the blending of them. I love them. And then I just kind of let them droop, or I take a makeup sponge and spread them around, and they just make like a cool background, I think. And they're just so highly pigmented. I love them. Some people will say that they don't love them because they activate with water, but I haven't really had any problems. So I don't know. You decide, but I really like them. So I just kind of move them around and spray them and just let them kind of drip and drizzle everywhere. I do let these dry, and then I'm going to go back in with some paint, and I kind of follow the flow of what's happening here. And so I'm using the same-ish colors, but I'm adding some green in here. And then what I do is I lay down 2 colors, and then I take the third to blend in the spaces. Now I'm going in with the stencil and some white, letting it dry. Now we can go in, and I pulled out a bunch of this ephemera that I had, some tags, and I was just kind of looking at what I had, and I wasn't sure between the black or the craft, but then I saw that I had this pre-folded tag here. I just kind of folded it at some point, and I thought, oh, maybe that would look cute right there. So I just kind of lay everything out. I run all of my ephemera through a sticker maker, so it's ready for me to lay down. It just makes it so much easier for me. So now I'm laying them down, and they do have that sticker back, and so it's kind of, you just kind of have to imagine that white border not on them. And I just kind of lay them down and see if I like them. I kind of like that right there. Now adding some more to this other side. The sticky back kind of can get a little distracting, and so I'm just gonna lay these down so I can see it better. I know that I want that there. I think that looks good there. And then these Tim Holtz paper dolls. I love those little paper dolls. I just think they're fun and vintagey, and I just think they're cute. So I'm just kind of laying them down, just seeing where I like it. And I think that's going to be where I want that. I like the little contrast of all the little vintage papers, and then that little swirl on the bottom. So this right here, I really liked how that turned out. It was just a scrap that I had used leftover paint on, and so I just cut a square of it out and ran it through the sticker maker. I really have to be careful when I use the vintage papers in the sticker maker, because you have to pull them off very carefully or they'll tear. So I go very slowly here, and then they're fine. After you get them off of that paper, they stick real great, and it works out real good. Testing just make sure everything's dry before I lay everything down, because if it's not dry, it's just going to come right back up. So, but it feels a little dry there, so it's good. Now this little tag, I just folded up the bottom, and I'm going to see if this works. And so I ran it through the sticker maker. I was a little nervous about it, afraid I was going to break it, and it came out just fine. I just thought that would be easier to do it that way. Let's lay down this other side and see if it is gonna line up nice. There we go. Yeah, that's good. Laying down the paper dolls. I'm having to do a voiceover on this because when I recorded it, people were revving their snow machines outside. So I'm like, I'll just voiceover whenever everybody's being quiet. We have snow, so people are out with their snow machines, and it can get a little noisy in here. So here we go. The rest of the quote on this side. I just think that background really adds to the vintagey look of the overall of what I'm using. And so I just thought that worked out really good. Now on this, I was going to stitch it, but I got this new nifty tool, and I have a stapler, but this mini stapler, can I just tell you, is the bee's knees. I had never had one before, and I see all these people using it, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to try it just to see. And using it, the staples are so small that I really like it, because like here, I just add one staple on each side, and it holds that tag together like a pocket, without those big bulky staples. And I really liked it. And then I don't have to take my journal over to the sewing machine, which I love taking my journal over to the sewing machine all the time, but it works out really good to have that little stapler. Now I'm going to cut her legs off because I thought it would be cool to have her legs on the front of the pocket and her kind of sitting on the back of this little tag pocket. Craft paper, you have to press down a little harder. It seems like it doesn't want to take that glue so easily, but it does eventually. Now I'm going to lay down this quote. Again, it's with that vintage paper. When you run vintage paper through the sticker maker, you have to be very careful when you're pulling it off because sometimes it will rip and tear, which isn't too big of a deal, but I don't love it. So I try to be very careful whenever I'm ripping it up. But it always sticks really well. Vintage paper really sticks good whenever you put sticker to the back of it, so it's nice. So I'm looking at this, and there's no ribbon, and I have this ribbon addiction, so I'm thinking it needs some ribbon. I just like little bits of ribbon. I just think they add some whimsicalness to the overall image too, so I like them. I'm going to use that little stapler to attach it here. There we go. I'm just kind of cutting the loop so it's not like looped, it just kind of rustic sitting there. And then now I'm thinking on the edge. I love putting, there we go. Oh, we just got the staple there. I'm thinking about the edge here, if I need a piece of ribbon there or not. And then also over here looks very, very bare. It looks like it needs something and I just don't know what yet. So I'm just gonna maybe cut up a piece of this ephemera and attach it there so that it matches also with the other side. I love collage because I like that you can watercolor on collage, you can acrylic paint on collage, and then as you're adding it, you have like many different elements. I guess that's why we're mixed media artists. We just like all those types of elements, and so that's what I love about all this. There's a little bit of everything from the infusions, acrylics, inks, ribbons, vintage papers. Like I like that. I like whenever it has a little bit of everything. See, I do think that side needs that little bit of, I don't know, right there. Also, it's fun whenever you're looking at a book and there's ribbons sticking out the sides, so I like that. And I'm loving this stapler because I can just staple and attach that little ribbon, and there we go. And voila, done. Just make sure everything's secure, let it dry, and we're good to go.